The galaxy had known war for longer than anyone could remember. Alien races fought each other over planets, resources, and power. It was a never-ending cycle of destruction, with no clear winner in sight. Humanity, on the other hand, was new to this game. Only recently had Earth joined the galactic community, stepping onto the stage as a minor player. To most alien species, humans were seen as weak, unimportant, and easy to ignore. But deep inside the United Nations Space Command Headquarters, something was stirring. Daniel Carter sat at his desk, staring at a screen filled with glowing lines and dots. He was young for his position, but sharp-minded, known for spotting patterns others missed. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, pulling up data from distant corners of space. Beside him, Laura Bennett leaned over her own monitor, her brow furrowed in concentration. She was an astrophysicist who specialized in alien technology, and together, they made a good team. Both worked late into the night, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. For weeks now, reports had trickled in about unusual activity among the alien empires. Ships were moving in strange formations, gathering near a specific region of space far from Earth. At first, it seemed like just another conflict between rival species. But Daniel and Laura weren't so sure. Something about the movements felt different, calculated, deliberate. They spent hours analyzing the data, cross-referencing it with older records. Slowly, a picture began to emerge. "Do you see this?" Daniel asked, pointing to a cluster of red markers on his screen. "These fleets aren't attacking each other. They're converging." Laura nodded, her eyes scanning the information. "And look here," she said, tapping her screen. "This sector, they're all heading toward the same area. It's not random." Daniel leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. If they're not fighting each other, then what are they doing? And why there? Neither of them had an answer, but both felt a growing sense of unease. The convergence point wasn't near any major alien territories or resource-rich planets. In fact, it was dangerously close to Earth's solar system. That realization sent a chill down their spines. The next morning, Laura arrived early, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to Daniel, who looked like he hadn't slept at all. "I ran some simulations last night," she said, sitting down. "If those fleets keep moving at their current speed, they'll reach our borders in less than a month." Daniel took a sip of his coffee, his mind racing. Why would they come here? We've barely interacted with them. What do we have that they want? Laura hesitated before answering. Maybe it's not about what we have. Maybe it's about what we could have. Her words hung in the air. Humanity's rapid technological progress had surprised even its own leaders. In just a few decades, Earth had gone from primitive space exploration to building advanced ships and weapons. To more established civilizations, this might seem threatening. If left alone, humans could become a formidable force. Before they could discuss it further, an alarm blared through the command center. A message flashed on their screens. "Urgent incoming transmission." Daniel opened the file, his heart pounding. It contained images captured by a deep space probe. Dozens of alien ships, larger than anything humanity had ever built, were amassing near the edge of human-controlled space. "They're not just passing through," Laura whispered, her voice trembling. "They're coming for us." Daniel clenched his fists, anger mixing with fear. "We can't wait for them to strike first. We need to act." He picked up the phone and dialed the president's office. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. Humanity's days of being ignored were over. The call to action came swiftly after Daniel's report reached the president. Within hours, top military officials, scientists, and government leaders gathered in a secure underground bunker beneath Washington, D.C. The room buzzed with tension as everyone processed the gravity of the situation. Laura stood beside Daniel, clutching a tablet filled with data. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice remained steady as she explained the findings to the assembled group. "This isn't just a random attack," she said, projecting images of the alien fleet onto a large screen. They'd been planning this for months, maybe years. Their movements are precise, coordinated. They're coming here because they see us as a threat. A general at the far end of the table frowned. A threat? We're still decades behind their level of technology. Why would they waste time on us? Daniel stepped forward, his expression grim. Because we're advancing too quickly. To them, we're unpredictable. If they let us grow stronger, we could challenge their dominance. That's why they're hitting us now, before we become a real problem. The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. For years, humanity had dreamed of taking its place among the stars. No one imagined that dream would turn into a fight for survival so soon. The president, a calm and measured woman named Ellen Monroe, leaned forward in her chair. "What are our options?" she asked. Daniel exchanged a glance with Laura before replying. "We can't wait for them to reach Earth. By then, it'll be too late. Our best chance is to strike first, hit them where it hurts before they realize what's happening." The idea was met with skepticism. Humanity's fleet was small compared to the vast armadas of the alien empires. But Daniel had a plan. He turned to a scientist seated near the back of the room. "Dr. Ethan Cole, you've been working on Project Aurora, right? Is it ready?" Ethan hesitated, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "It's functional," he admitted, "but it hasn't been tested in combat. There's no guarantee it will work." Laura cut in, her tone urgent. "We don't have time for guarantees. If Aurora does what it's supposed to, it could give us the edge we need." Project Aurora was humanity's greatest secret, a weapon designed to exploit quantum entanglement. Developed by Ethan and his colleague Grace Monroe, it had the potential to disrupt enemy communications and disable entire fleets simultaneously. It was risky, unproven, and possibly Earth's only hope. General Hayes, a grizzled veteran with sharp eyes, spoke up. "Even if Aurora works, we'll still need boots on the ground. Or rather, ships in space. Who's leading the charge?" "I'll do it," said Jake Miller, a pilot known for his daring maneuvers and quick thinking. He stood up, his jaw set. "I've trained for this my whole life. Let me take point." Beside him, Samantha Brooks nodded in agreement. "I'm with him. Whatever happens, we won't back down." The president studied the faces around the table, weighing the risks. Finally, she gave a firm nod. "Prepare everything. We move within 48 hours. As the meeting broke up, Daniel pulled Laura aside. "Do you think we can pull this off?" he asked quietly. She sighed, looking exhausted but determined. "We have to. If we fail, it's not just Earth that's lost. It's everything we've built, everything we could become." Back at the command center, preparations began in earnest. Engineers worked around the clock to fine-tune Aurora, while pilots like Jake and Samantha drilled tirelessly. Supplies were loaded onto ships, and troops prepared for battle. Despite the odds, a spark of hope ignited among the crew. For the first time, humanity wasn't waiting to be attacked, it was fighting back. Daniel watched from the observation deck as ships launched into orbit, their engines glowing against the night sky. Beside him, Laura murmured, "This changes everything." Deep beneath the Nevada desert, hidden from prying eyes, stood a massive underground facility. It was here that humanity's last hope rested. Project Aurora. The weapon looked unassuming at first glance, a series of sleek panels connected to a central core, but its potential was immense. Ethan Cole paced nervously around the device, checking readings and muttering to himself. Beside him, Grace Monroe worked just as frantically, her fingers flying over a tablet as she adjusted the final settings. "It's stable," Grace said finally, glancing up at Ethan. "At least as stable as it's going to get." Ethan stopped pacing and ran a hand through his messy hair. "That's not exactly reassuring." Grace gave him a small smile. "Would you rather I lie and say everything will go perfectly?" He sighed, shaking his head. "No, I'd rather this wasn't happening at all." The two scientists had spent years developing Aurora, pouring their hearts into the project. They knew how much depended on it. If Aurora failed, humanity's fleet would be crushed in moments. But if it worked, even partially, it could turn the tide of the battle. Outside the lab, General Hayes entered with Daniel Carter and Laura Bennett. The general's boots echoed sharply against the metal floor as he approached Ethan and Grace. "Status report," he barked. "Aurora is ready for deployment," Ethan replied, though his voice wavered slightly. "We've run all the simulations we can, but there's no way to fully predict how it will perform in combat." Hayes frowned but nodded. "Understood. Loaded onto the command ship. We leave in 6 hours." As workers began dismantling Aurora for transport, Daniel turned to Laura. "Do you think they'll even know what hit them?" Laura hesitated before answering. "If it works the way it's supposed to, they won't have time to figure it out. But that's a big if." Daniel nodded silently, his mind racing. He trusted Ethan and Grace, but the uncertainty gnawed at him. Too much was riding on this one device. One mistake, one miscalculation, and Earth would pay the price. Meanwhile, aboard the human fleet's flagship, pilots like Jake Miller and Samantha Brooks prepared for what lay ahead. The hangar buzzed with activity as technicians checked every inch of their fighters. Jake leaned against his ship, reviewing tactics on a handheld screen. His usual confidence was tinged with unease. This wasn't just another training exercise. It was real. Lives depended on him, on all of them. Samantha joined him, her expression serious. "You ready for this?" she asked. Jake shrugged, forcing a grin. "Doesn't matter if I'm ready or not. It's happening either way." She smirked, punching his arm lightly. Same old Jake, always trying to act tough. He chuckled, but the laughter didn't reach his eyes. "Just promise me one thing," he said after a moment. "If things go south, don't let me freeze up out there." "You won't," Samantha assured him. "And if you do, I'll drag your sorry butt back myself." Their banter helped ease the tension, but both knew the stakes. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for everyone back home. For families, friends, and strangers they'd never meet. Failure wasn't an option. Back in the command center, Daniel stared at the map of the battlefield projected onto the wall. Red dots represented the alien fleet, outnumbering the blue dots of Earth's forces by a staggering margin. He pointed to a cluster of red near the edge of the formation. "Here's our best shot," he said. "If we hit them here, it'll cause chaos. With any luck, Aurora can take care of the rest." Laura studied the map, nodding slowly. "It's risky, but it might work." General Hayes stepped forward, his voice firm. "Then that's the plan. Move Aurora into position and prepare for engagement. We strike at dawn." As the hours ticked away, the sense of anticipation grew heavier. Soldiers checked their gear, engineers double-checked systems, and officers reviewed strategies. Everyone knew the odds were against them, but determination outweighed fear. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. Now it was time to prove that underestimating them was a mistake. Ethan and Grace watched as Aurora was loaded onto the command ship. Neither spoke, but their shared glance conveyed everything. This was their creation, their responsibility. Whatever happened next, they had done all they could. In the quiet moments before departure, Daniel found himself staring at the stars. He thought about Earth, the cities, the forests, the oceans, and all the people counting on him. Then he whispered softly, almost to himself, "This is for you." The human fleet moved silently through the darkness of space, heading toward Saturn's rings. It was the perfect place for an ambush. Dense enough to provide cover, but open enough to maneuver. Daniel Carter stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching as the plan unfolded on a large holographic display. Blue dots representing Earth's forces spread out across the map, taking their positions carefully. The red dots of the alien fleet loomed closer, like a storm about to break. Laura Bennett adjusted her headset, speaking into the comm system. "All units, report in," she said, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. One by one, the pilots responded. Jake Miller's voice crackled over the line first. "Red team ready." "Blue team standing by," added Samantha Brooks. Ethan Cole, stationed near Aurora's controls, gave a thumbs up to Grace Monroe. "Aurora is online and stable for now." General Hayes stood at the center of the bridge, his eyes scanning the display. "Remember the plan," he said firmly. "Engage directly, flank when possible, and wait for the signal to deploy Aurora. Timing is everything." As the alien fleet entered range, the first wave of human fighters surged forward. Jake led Red Team, weaving through the icy debris of Saturn's rings with precision. His ship darted between asteroids, firing short bursts at the larger alien vessels. Behind him, Samantha coordinated Blue Team, using smaller drones to harass the enemy and draw their attention away from the main fleet. The aliens weren't slow to react. Their ships unleashed beams of energy that lit up the void, forcing the human pilots to dodge constantly. Jake gritted his teeth as alarms blared in his cockpit. "They're faster than we thought," he muttered, banking sharply to avoid a blast. "They're also bigger and slower," Samantha replied over the comms. "Keep hitting them where it hurts. Their engines and weapons systems." Daniel watched the battle unfold from the command ship, his heart pounding. So far, the plan was working. The aliens were focused on the fighter squadrons, leaving their central formation vulnerable. But the real test was yet to come. Grace sat beside Ethan, monitoring Aurora's systems. Her fingers hovered over the controls, ready to activate the weapon at a moment's notice. "Energy levels are holding steady," she reported. "Just say the word." "Not yet," General Hayes ordered. "Wait for my signal." Back in the fray, Jake spotted an opportunity. A cluster of alien cruisers had drifted slightly apart from the main group, exposing their weak points. "Blue Team, follow me," he shouted, leading his squadron into a daring assault. Missiles streaked through space, striking the cruisers' engines and disabling several ships. Samantha cheered over the comms. "Nice work, Jake. Keep it up." But the victory was short-lived. The aliens regrouped quickly, sending reinforcements to counter the attack. Jake's fighter shuddered as a glancing blow struck its wing. "I'm hit," he called out, struggling to stabilize his craft. "We've got you covered," Samantha replied, launching a decoy drone to distract the enemy. Jake managed to pull away just in time, his breathing ragged. On the command ship, Laura noticed something alarming. "General, they're tightening their formation. If they close ranks, Aurora won't be able to reach all of them." Hayes clenched his jaw, weighing the risks. "We can't wait any longer. Activate Aurora." Ethan hesitated for only a second before pressing the activation button. The ship trembled as Aurora powered up, emitting a low hum that grew louder with each passing second. Outside, a faint pulse rippled through space, invisible to the naked eye, but devastating in its effect. One by one, the alien ships began to falter. Their weapons stopped firing, their engines sputtered, and their communication channels went silent. Pilots across the fleet cheered as the once mighty Armada drifted helplessly. But Daniel's relief was short-lived. On the display, a massive alien dreadnought emerged from hyperspace, untouched by Aurora's effects. Its size dwarfed even the largest human ships, and its weapons charged ominously. The massive alien dreadnought loomed in the distance, its surface bristling with weapons and glowing with energy. It was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, a hulking monstrosity that seemed to blot out the stars. On the bridge of the command ship, Daniel Carter stared at the screen in disbelief. Aurora had disabled most of the alien fleet, but this new arrival rendered their greatest weapon useless. Laura leaned closer to the display, her voice tense. "It must have some kind of shielding. That's why Aurora didn't affect it." General Hayes frowned, his jaw tightening. "If we don't take that thing down, it'll tear through what's left of our forces." Jake Miller heard the exchange over the comms and felt a chill run down his spine. He glanced at his instruments, watching as the dreadnought's weapons powered up. A single shot from those cannons could obliterate an entire squadron. "We need to do something," "Now," he said urgently. Samantha Brooks chimed in, her tone sharp. "But what? We can't even scratch its armor, let alone take it out." Ethan Cole listened intently from his station near Aurora's controls. His mind raced, searching for a solution. Then it hit him. "Grace," he whispered, turning to his colleague. "What if we overload Aurora?" Grace's eyes widened. "You mean detonate it?" He nodded quickly. "Aurora generates an immense amount of energy. If we channel all of it into one concentrated burst, it might be enough to disable the dreadnought, or at least weaken its shields." "But what about us?" Grace asked, her voice trembling. "That kind of explosion would destroy everything nearby." Ethan hesitated, knowing she was right. Someone would have to get close enough to deliver the payload without endangering the rest of the fleet, and that someone would likely not make it back. Before they could discuss further, General Hayes issued orders over the comms. "All units, fall back to a safe distance. Red Team, prepare for a suicide run on the dreadnought." Jake froze, gripping the controls of his fighter. "Suicide run? Sir, are you sure?" "We don't have a choice," Hayes replied, his voice firm. "Someone has to draw its fire while we figure out how to stop it." Ethan stepped forward, speaking into the comms before Jake could respond. "General, there's another option. Aurora can still work if we retrofit one of the mining vessels with explosives and ram it into the dreadnought." The room fell silent as everyone processed his words. Laura looked at Daniel, her expression torn between hope and dread. "It's risky, but it might buy us enough time." Hayes nodded slowly. "Do it. Prep the nearest mining vessel." Ethan raised his hand, stepping closer to the general. "Sir, I'll pilot it." Grace spun around, her face pale. "No, Ethan, you can't." He placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice calm but resolute. "Someone has to do it. I built Aurora. I know how to handle it." For a moment, no one spoke. Then Hayes gave a curt nod. "Permission granted. Get moving." As Ethan headed toward the mining vessel, Grace followed him, tears streaming down her face. "Please, let someone else go. You don't have to do this." Ethan stopped and turned to her, forcing a small smile. "Yes, I do. Trust me, Grace. This is my job." She wanted to argue, to beg him to stay, but she knew it wouldn't change his mind. Instead, she hugged him tightly, whispering, "Come back to us." "I'll try," he said softly before pulling away and climbing aboard the mining vessel. Back in the fight, Jake and Samantha provided cover fire, drawing the dreadnought's attention away from Ethan. Explosions lit up the void as their ships darted around the massive alien craft. "Keep it busy," Jake shouted over the comms. "Give him time." Inside the mining vessel, Ethan worked quickly, rerouting power to the engines and arming the explosives. The dreadnought grew larger in his viewport with each passing second. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he steadied his breathing. This was it, the final play. "Approaching target," he announced, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "Detonation in 10 seconds. On the command ship, Grace watched the countdown on her screen, her hands clasped tightly together. Daniel stood beside her, his fists clenched. Everyone held their breath. The mining vessel slammed into the dreadnought with a blinding flash of light. The explosion rippled through space, shaking the human fleet and scattering debris across the battlefield. For a moment, there was only silence. The explosion from the mining vessel lit up the battlefield like a second sun, its brilliance momentarily blinding everyone who witnessed it. When the light faded, the massive alien dreadnought was gone, reduced to a cloud of twisted metal and debris drifting silently through space. On the command ship, cheers erupted as pilots and crew members celebrated the destruction of their greatest threat. But for Grace Monroe, the victory felt hollow. She sat at her station, staring blankly at the screen where Ethan's signal had disappeared moments ago. Her hands trembled as she tried to focus on the data streaming in, but her mind kept replaying his final words. "I'll try." She had known him better than anyone. His determination, his humor, his quiet bravery. And now he was gone. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them away, refusing to let her emotions overwhelm her. There would be time to grieve later. For now, there was still work to do. Daniel Carter stood nearby, watching Grace with a heavy heart. He wanted to say something, anything, to comfort her, but no words seemed adequate. Instead, he turned his attention back to the battle display. The remaining alien ships were retreating, their formations falling apart without the dreadnought to anchor them. Aurora's earlier pulse had left them vulnerable, and Earth's forces pressed their advantage, picking off stragglers and forcing the rest into full retreat. General Hayes stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. All units, maintain pursuit but stay cautious. Don't get reckless. They might still have surprises left. Jake Miller heard the order and nodded grimly. His fighter darted between chunks of wreckage, firing short bursts at fleeing alien vessels. Samantha Brooks flew alongside him, her movements precise and calculated. "They're running scared," she said over the comms. "Let's make sure they don't come back." "Agreed," Jake replied, though his usual bravado was muted. The weight of what had just happened hung over him too. He glanced at the spot where the dreadnought had been, thinking about Ethan. The man had sacrificed everything to save them all. It wasn't fair, but war rarely was. Back on the command ship, Laura Bennett studied the retreating alien fleet, her brow furrowed. "They're not just retreating. They're regrouping," she said, pointing to clusters of ships forming near the edge of sensor range. "If we don't act now, they'll gather reinforcements and come back stronger." Daniel nodded, understanding the urgency. "We need to finish this before they recover." General Hayes crossed his arms, considering their options. "Aurora's still operational. Can we use it again?" Grace looked up, startled by the question. She hesitated for a moment, then shook her head. "Not safely. The system's already overloaded from the last pulse. Pushing it further could cause a catastrophic failure." Hayes frowned but didn't argue. Instead, he turned to Daniel. "Then we'll have to improvise. Any ideas?" Daniel thought quickly, scanning the battlefield. Most of the alien ships were damaged, their systems still reeling from Aurora's effects. If they acted fast, they could disable the remaining vessels before they escaped. "We split our forces," he suggested. "Send half to block their escape route, while the other half focuses on disabling their engines. They won't risk another fight if they can't move." The plan was risky, but it was their best shot. Hayes gave the order, and the human fleet moved swiftly into position. Pilots like Jake and Samantha led the charge, targeting engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. The aliens fought back fiercely, but their coordination was crumbling, and their numbers dwindled rapidly. As the final alien ship limped away, pursued by Earth's fighters, a sense of relief washed over the command ship. The battle was over for now. Humanity had won, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone. Ethan's sacrifice loomed large in their minds, a reminder of how close they'd come to losing everything. Grace finally allowed herself to cry, burying her face in her hands. Daniel placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, offering what little comfort he could. "He saved us," he said softly. "We owe him everything." Laura nodded, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "And we'll honor him by making sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain." The human fleet returned to Earth in somber silence. The victory near Saturn's rings had been hard-won, but the cost was etched deeply into everyone's minds. Ethan Cole's sacrifice weighed heavily on the crew, especially Grace Monroe. She spent most of the journey back staring out a viewport, her thoughts consumed by memories of him. She replayed their last conversation over and over, wishing she had said more, or begged harder for him to stay. When they arrived at Earth's orbit, the planet below looked peaceful and unchanged, its blue oceans and swirling clouds untouched by the horrors of war. But Daniel Carter knew that peace was fragile. He stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching the shuttles ferried soldiers and supplies back to the surface. The battle may have ended, but the scars would linger for years to come. Laura Bennett joined him, holding a tablet filled with data from the fight. "We need to analyze everything," she said softly. "Every move they made, every tactic we used. It could save us if they return." Daniel nodded, though his mind wasn't fully on strategy. He glanced toward Grace, who sat alone at the far end of the room. Her face was pale, her eyes distant. "How's she holding up?" he asked Laura. "Not well," Laura admitted. "She hasn't slept since. You know, none of us have." "Really?" They both fell silent, the weight of what they'd been through pressing down on them. The celebration back on Earth felt hollow compared to the grief aboard the ships. Heroes were being hailed, medals promised, speeches prepared, but none of it mattered to Jake Miller or Samantha Brooks. They walked through the corridors of their carrier vessel quietly, avoiding eye contact with others. Neither wanted recognition. All they wanted was time to process what had happened. Jake found himself replaying the explosion in his mind. The blinding flash, the shockwave that shook his fighter, the deafening silence afterward. He clenched his fists, angry at himself for not finding another way. "I should have done something," he muttered under his breath. Samantha heard him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did everything you could," she said firmly. Ethan knew what he was doing. He chose this. "I know," Jake replied, his voice cracking slightly. "But it doesn't make it easier." Down on Earth, crowds gathered in cities around the world to welcome the returning heroes. Screens displayed images of triumphant pilots and stoic commanders, but behind closed doors, the reality was different. General Hayes met with the president and other leaders in an emergency session. The mood was tense despite the recent victory. Everyone understood that the aliens would not give up so easily. "We stopped them this time," Hayes began, pacing in front of the assembled group. "But they'll be back, with more ships, better weapons, and no mercy. We can't afford to rest." The president nodded, her expression grave. "What do we need?" "Time," Hayes answered without hesitation. "And resources. Aurora gave us an edge, but it's not enough. We need stronger defenses, faster ships, and more advanced technology. If we don't prepare now, next time might be our last." In the days that followed, humanity rallied together in ways it never had before. Factories switched from producing consumer goods to building weapons and starships. Scientists worked around the clock to improve Aurora and develop new systems. Schools introduced courses on space warfare and diplomacy, preparing the next generation for the challenges ahead. Grace threw herself into her work, determined to honor Ethan's memory. She led a team tasked with reverse engineering alien technology salvaged from the battlefield. Every piece of wreckage brought new insights, fueling advancements that would strengthen Earth's forces. Late at night, when the lot was empty, she sometimes whispered his name, imagining him smiling proudly at her progress. Daniel and Laura continued analyzing the battle, piecing together lessons learned. Their reports became the foundation for future strategies, ensuring humanity wouldn't repeat its mistakes. Though exhausted, they pushed forward, driven by the knowledge that failure meant extinction. As weeks turned into months, life on Earth began to stabilize. Troops trained harder, civilians volunteered for service, and governments united under a single banner: survival. Humanity had proven it could stand against even the greatest odds. But everyone knew the real test was yet to come. One evening, Daniel stood outside, gazing at the stars. For the first time in months, he allowed himself a small smile. "We're ready," he whispered. "Bring it on." Months passed since the battle near Saturn's rings, and Earth transformed rapidly. The planet buzzed with activity as humanity prepared for the inevitable return of the alien forces. Construction sites dotted the skies, where massive orbital defense platforms were being built. These structures bristled with weapons powered by upgraded versions of Aurora technology. Factories churned out new ships, each faster and more advanced than the last. Scientists worked tirelessly to refine Earth's arsenal, ensuring that humanity would never be caught off guard again. Grace Monroe spent most of her days in a research lab buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Her team had grown larger, filled with brilliant minds from around the world. Together, they studied alien technology salvaged from the battlefield, unlocking secrets that pushed human engineering to new heights. Grace often found herself staring at a piece of alien circuitry late at night, imagining Ethan's voice beside her, offering advice or cracking a joke. She missed him terribly, but his sacrifice fueled her determination. "We'll be ready," she whispered to herself one evening, running her fingers over the alien device. "For you." Jake Miller and Samantha Brooks trained constantly, pushing themselves harder than ever before. Their squadron, once small and underfunded, had grown into an elite force known as Vanguard Flight. Pilots from every nation joined their ranks, eager to learn from the heroes who had faced down the alien dreadnought. Jake taught them how to fly with precision, while Samantha drilled them on teamwork and strategy. Despite their growing fame, neither pilot sought glory. They kept Ethan's memory alive by naming their training program after him. Project Phoenix, a symbol of rising from ashes. Daniel Carter and Laura Bennett remained at the heart of humanity's preparations. They analyzed countless simulations, testing new tactics against hypothetical alien attacks. Their office walls were covered in maps, charts, and equations, each representing a step toward survival. Daniel often joked that he hadn't seen sunlight in months, but his tone was always serious when discussing the future. "If they come back stronger, we need to be smarter," he told Laura during one late-night meeting. "Every second counts." General Hayes oversaw the global effort, coordinating military forces and ensuring unity among nations. He addressed the United Nations frequently, urging leaders to set aside old rivalries. "This isn't about borders or politics anymore," he said during one speech. "It's about protecting our species. If we stand divided, we fall together." His words resonated deeply, inspiring unprecedented cooperation. Schools around the world adapted quickly, introducing courses on interspecies relations and space diplomacy. Children learned about the importance of peace alongside lessons on self-defense. Teachers emphasized coexistence, hoping to prevent future conflicts through understanding rather than fear. Even art and music reflected the shift. Murals depicting stars and planets replaced images of war, symbolizing hope for a better tomorrow. The President, Ellen Monroe, played a key role in uniting humanity. She traveled extensively, visiting cities and towns to boost morale. During one speech in New York City, she stood before thousands of cheering citizens and reminded them of what they had achieved. 5 hours, she said, her voice strong and clear. "That's how long it took us to turn the tide. 5 hours that proved we are capable of greatness. But let this not be the end. It must be the beginning." As Earth fortified itself, whispers of the aliens' movements reached Daniel and Laura through deep space probes. The enemy fleets were regrouping, rebuilding, and expanding. It was only a matter of time before they returned. But instead of fear, humanity felt resolve. They had stared into the abyss and survived. Now they were learning to fight back and win. One night, Daniel climbed to the roof of the command center, gazing at the stars. Beside him, Laura joined quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one and sighed. "Do you think we're ready?" He sipped the coffee, his eyes scanning the heavens. "I don't know, but we've done everything we can. That's enough for now." Laura nodded, leaning back against the railing. "Ethan would be proud of us." Daniel smiled faintly. Yeah, he would. The galaxy stretched endlessly above them, vast and unknowable. Humanity had taken its first steps into the stars, proving it could hold its ground against even the greatest threats. Whatever came next, they would face it together, with courage, ingenuity, and the unshakable belief that peace was worth fighting for. The memory of Ethan Cole lingered in every corner of humanity's efforts. His sacrifice became more than just a story, it was a symbol. Statues were erected in his honor, not just in major cities, but also in small towns where people gathered to remember those who had given everything for Earth's survival. Grace Monroe avoided these memorials at first, unable to face the reminders of her loss. But as time passed, she found herself visiting them quietly, placing flowers or simply standing in silence. Each statue bore the same inscription: "For those who lit the way." It was a phrase that resonated deeply with her, and with everyone who had lived through the war. Jake Miller and Samantha Brooks carried Ethan's legacy in their own way. Vanguard flight grew stronger under their leadership, becoming a beacon of hope for humanity. Pilots from all over the world joined their ranks, inspired by tales of bravery and teamwork. Jake often told new recruits about the day Ethan saved them all. "He didn't have to do it," Jake would say, his voice steady despite the emotion behind his words. "But he did. That's the kind of people we need to be, people who step up when it matters." Samantha added her piece during training sessions. "Courage isn't about being fearless," she explained. "It's about doing what needs to be done, even when you're scared." Ethan taught us that. Daniel Carter and Laura Bennett continued their work tirelessly, analyzing data and refining strategies. Their office walls were now filled with notes on alien psychology and culture, alongside tactical maps. They realized that understanding their enemy was as important as preparing to fight them. "If we know why they came after us," Daniel said during one meeting, "we might find a way to stop them without another battle." Laura nodded, pointing to a chart detailing communication patterns among alien species. "They're not mindless invaders. Maybe there's room for negotiation, or at least deterrence." Grace's research played a crucial role in this effort. By reverse engineering alien technology, her team uncovered clues about their motivations and weaknesses. She presented her findings to General Hayes, who listened intently. "Their ships rely heavily on centralized networks," Grace explained, showing diagrams of alien systems. "Disrupting those networks cripples them. Aurora gave us a taste of that power, but we can go further." Hayes agreed, ordering immediate upgrades to Earth's defense grid. Orbital platforms now bristled with weapons capable of targeting alien networks, while advanced drones patrolled deep space, ready to intercept any threats. The message was clear: humanity wasn't waiting to be attacked again. Meanwhile, back on Earth, life began to feel almost normal. Farmers planted crops, children played in parks, and families celebrated holidays together. Yet beneath the surface, everyone knew the galaxy was watching and waiting. Schools taught lessons about resilience and unity, emphasizing that humanity's strength lay in its diversity. Artists painted murals of stars and planets intertwined with olive branches, blending dreams of exploration with hopes for peace. President Ellen Monroe addressed the United Nations once more, her tone both firm and hopeful. "We've shown the universe that we are not weak," she declared. "But strength alone cannot win the future. We must build bridges, not walls. Only then can we ensure that our children inherit a galaxy worth living in." Her words struck a chord worldwide. Diplomats reached out cautiously to neighboring alien species, seeking alliances or at least mutual respect. While many aliens remained wary of humans, some responded positively. Intrigued by Earth's rapid rise, humanity's reputation shifted from an insignificant newcomer to a force that could not be ignored. One evening, Daniel climbed to the roof of the command center again, this time joined by Laura, Grace, Jake, and Samantha. Together, they gazed at the stars, each lost in thought. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Jake broke the silence. "Whatever happens next," he said, his voice soft but resolute, "we'll face it together." Grace smiled faintly, clutching a small photo of Ethan in her hand. "Yeah," she whispered, "together." The stars above seemed endless, full of mystery and danger. But humanity had proven it could adapt, survive, and grow. For the first time in history, Earth stood united, not just against threats, but for something greater. A chance to shape its place in the cosmos. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would meet them not with fear, but with hope. Months turned into years, and humanity's transformation continued. The Orbital Defense Network, powered by advancements in Aurora technology, stretched across Earth's skies like a shield of light. Ships patrolled the edges of human-controlled space, their crews trained to respond instantly to any threat. Factories on the moon churned out new vessels, each faster, stronger, and smarter than the last. Humanity was no longer the underdog. It had become a force to be reckoned with. Grace Monroe led the charge in developing new technologies, her team growing more innovative with every breakthrough. They created drones capable of repairing ships mid-battle and communication systems that could bypass alien interference. Grace often thought about Ethan while working late into the night, imagining how proud he would be of what they had achieved. She kept his photo pinned to her workstation, a quiet reminder of why she pushed so hard. "We're ready," she whispered one evening as she tested a prototype weapon. "For you." Jake Miller and Samantha Brooks remained at the forefront of Earth's defenses. Vanguard Flight had become legendary, its pilots known for their skill and bravery. Jake mentored younger recruits, teaching them not just how to fly but how to think under pressure. Samantha focused on strategy, drilling her team in complex maneuvers designed to outwit even the most advanced enemies. Together, they ensured that humanity's fleet was prepared for anything. Daniel Carter and Laura Bennett spent their days analyzing data from deep space probes, searching for signs of the aliens' return. Their office walls were covered in maps, charts, and equations, each representing a step toward survival. Daniel often joked that he hadn't seen sunlight in years, but his tone was always serious when discussing the future. "If they come back stronger," he told Laura during one late-night meeting, "we need to be smarter. Every second counts." General Hayes oversaw the global effort, ensuring unity among nations. He addressed the United Nations regularly, urging leaders to stay vigilant. "This isn't over," he reminded them. "The moment we let our guard down is the moment we lose everything." His words resonated deeply, inspiring continued cooperation. Back on Earth, schools introduced courses on interspecies diplomacy, emphasizing coexistence over conflict. Children learned about peace alongside lessons on self-defense, hoping to prevent wars through understanding rather than fear. Murals depicting stars and planets replaced images of battles, symbolizing hope for a better tomorrow. President Ellen Monroe traveled extensively, visiting cities and towns to boost morale. During one speech in London, she stood before thousands of cheering citizens and reminded them of what they had achieved. 5 hours, she said, her voice strong and clear. "That's how long it took us to prove ourselves. 5 hours that showed the universe we are capable of greatness. But let this not be the end. It must be the beginning." As Earth fortified itself, whispers of alien movements reached Daniel and Laura through deep space probes. The enemy fleets were regrouping, rebuilding, and expanding. It was only a matter of time before they returned. But instead of fear, humanity felt resolve. They had stared into the abyss and survived. Now, they were learning to fight back and win. One night, Daniel climbed to the roof of the command center, gazing at the stars. Beside him, Laura joined quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one and sighed. "Do you think we're ready?" He sipped the coffee, his eyes scanning the heavens. "I don't know, but we've done everything we can. That's enough for now." Laura nodded, leaning back against the railing. "Ethan would be proud of us." Daniel smiled faintly. "Yeah, he would." The galaxy stretched endlessly above them, vast and unknowable. Humanity had taken its first steps into the stars, proving it could hold its ground against even the greatest threats. Whatever came next, they would face it together, with courage, ingenuity, and the unshakable belief that peace was worth fighting for,